make it acceptable to have a 3-power 5/5.
Yeah.
Now, interesting note, this polymorph doesn't actually break the Marionette Cross in play.
Oh, wow.
The Marionette Cross is now irrelevant, though, because it doesn't do anything without a marionette. All the Marionette Cross does is, well, creates the marionette and then sacrifices the marionette if the cross dies, meaning you can kill the marionette by killing the cross, and you can kill the cross by killing the marionette, but transforming the marionette does not count killing. Part of the point is that if you have multiple marionette crosses in play, killing one marionette kills all of the marionettes.
Hmm. But we can see yet again, it looks like the downfall of Kalos' deck is yet again the early aggression from the enemy. Even though it wasn't that much to deal with yet, it's already looking rather bad for her. And we see a lot of clunky units and no power inside right now. That Chosen Feast color could have helped quite a bit, just getting in front of the weapon, but
Spells are frequently the way you deal with an opponent wielding a relic weapon, and spells are something that Kalos doesn't have access to in her list. And we see that even though Catduit kind of was power screwed there, not really drawing a huge amount of power, they were able to just keep hitting with that sword, that hammer
yeah.
even, and took game one against Kalos.
It's funny because Kalos also mentioned in the tournament chat that if she could draw power as reliably as Eight of the Huru in her starting hand, she would have a way better time. And thinking about it, I can remember seeing quite some Eight of the Hurus last time as well in the opening or on the redraw. So that's a bit unfortunate, but
Interesting note: this take on Kalos's list actually can cast the Eight of the Hurus if
mm,
she gets to that amount of power, but I feel like she probably has time to commit her plan anyway if she's going to be getting 12 power anyway.
but this time it looks like Kalos decides to keep a rather, maybe not offensive, but some proactive hand right now. And
Here's
we see the
Catwood
influence, yeah. This could
with
work.
with the two marionette crosses. He'll be able to play
Mm.
one next turn to have a turn 3/5/5 that seems pretty strong. But if he wants to follow up with another marionette, that puts them at high risk of dying to one kill spell from Kalos. But of course, Kalos doesn't have much in the way of spells. Her ways of dealing with things are usually going to be more like that changey stick you see in her hand, which of course requires 5 power to be able to polymorph alongside playing out the stick.
Just asking for a friend right now. If you silence the marionette on the field right now, it's still active and nothing happens, right?
If you silence one marionette while there are multiple marionettes in play, nothing dies. If
Yeah.
you silence this marionette right now, that marionette cross will still be sitting around in Catuit's hand, but that doesn't really matter, or not in hand, in on Catuit. Holding a marionette cross with no marionette below it, it's not like killing the cross would result in sacrificing the then frog. It's similar to Illusory Dragon
Mm. Yeah.
in that sense.
We can see two relic weapons in Kaduit's hand right now. And we also see the changey sticks that won't do much just yet, but a long barrel and some silence as well as the Portent Reader.
I like this play by Kalos. Silencing the flyer means that she gets to have her double attack with
Yep.
Pro getting two one cards in hand. So that's Randaway and Excavate. I looked it up. Randaway is for freestyle martial.
Oh, wow. Nice.
I was wondering what it was, and turned out that's what it is.
Wonder if those spells would ever help in any way. I mean, changing the blocks doesn't feel like it would do much right now since Kalos is already on the defensive part right now.
I mean,
Maybe,
one of the best things Randaway can do here is be sacrificed to Portent Raider.
yeah. I guess that's also kind of the theme with the Crow and adding the Portent Trader as well. I can
Now,
see that being true.
Kalis bringing the Valkyrie Enforcer up to a 5/5 with the Long Barrel gets punished since Catuit had Vanquish in hand, allowing Catuit to get in for another 10 damage, putting Kalis now down to 10. She's
I
gonna
also
need
want to
to
mention here.
do some blocking here.
I also want to mention that I like the slow play of Catuit right now. Knowing for a fact that Kalos doesn't run much removal, but maybe the changey stick and the long barrel, if you really want to call it that way, and keeping the weapons in the back for now to push through in one swoop, basically, instead of just going for some easy trades they could have right now. Get some board state going that is beneficial for you by playing the other cross and maybe the Crown Watch Paladin out in the next turns, or be proactive right now with a Slay
Oh,
and
now
get damage going.
that's a 1-cost spell with some potential there that Kalos did get there. It might be a bit too
Oh,
little too late, but Call the Ancients puts 4 6/6 Titans with Endurance and Aegis somewhere randomly into your deck.
mm,
If she could draw those fairly quickly, they could definitely provide good blockers for everything Cat DeWitt has in play right now. Looks like she is going to play out the Frontier Bard probably as a blocker here.
yeah. But yet again, we can tell that even though Kalos is on the board right now, she just gets stomped by the units that are just bigger than hers, even though they are played on the same mana drop right now or on the same curve level. So I think there's still some iteration to be done for this deck. Maybe less conditional stuff and yeah, just consistent units and can get you to your actual end game or end goal. Because I don't see this deck ever getting there right now at this moment.
I've heard that she has managed to combo off sometimes when she's not being streamed, and that she sort of gets the curse of if she is being streamed, she's not going to combo off. Now, Bloodthirster put onto the Frog means that this is lethal damage no matter what. Unless Mindfire is not a fast spell, is it?
I think it might be, but it doesn't. It's not a card I've seen much yet.
Okay, Kalis is using Excavate to avoid dying this turn.
Mm.
The life gain puts her up to 1 after that attack. And now I believe she might. Well, she can put out 2 blockers.
But we can also see that both players here right now are kind of power screwed in a way. You don't get much. They draw small units right now or spells that don't really help or get through where they want to be. And Feed the Flames won't do it either, I'm pretty sure.
Feed the Flames actually is one of the better 1-cost spells that Kalos could have picked up there. That can result in her having some units in play right now. Even though they do have Reckless, they are very good blockers on that first turn that they show up.
Mm.
And
But not much more, man.
two of them
It's kind of
here,
unfortunate.
are enough to kill the Marionette, and Kalos is also able to play out another unit here as well. It's going to have to be the 1/1 Portent Reader if she decides that she wants to be killing something with these flame fangs, but it does allow her to survive a bit longer. She decides that it's Call the Ancients time. Maybe she can top deck what she needs, but Catuit does pull out the sword, the hammer, and that hammer is going to finish this game and this match with it.
It's kind of unfortunate because Kaduit wasn't putting that much pressure on Kalos. And we can see that this small pressure is already enough for the deck to crumble in a way. I'm pretty sure there is some version out there that could work, but maybe tournament environment is not the right place for such a conditional deck like this. As mentioned earlier, I appreciate her playing this and bringing new versions and trying to work on it, but I still think there's a long way to go before this can actually get some decent results in a tournament environment.
That does seem to be the case.
And it looks like we found another match.
We can dive on in now without the hand cam and hopefully be able to get the hand cam fairly soon.
Mm-hmm. And Houdini is probably playing the Dark Alessi you mentioned earlier, if I'm not mistaken, judging from the factions being played, as well as the board state right now.
And Sono is on a more traditional Alessi here. So this
Mm.
game is Houdini versus Sono.
This matchup already looks ridiculous just from getting in there right now.
Yeah, that's a bunch of big 1 and 2 cost units. So we know that Sono is currently up 1-0 against Houdini, and with this attack, this is probably going to result in Houdini having a very hard time coming back. Sono, of course, had the Crown Watch tactic to buff up his Alessi to a 12-12, and with that, Houdini sees the writing on the wall, so we didn't get much of that match, but well done to Sono for taking a win there.
I'm kind of glad that we actually get to see this game from the start now, or the next one, because that board state did look ridiculous the
That was the
moment
end
we
of the
came in.
match.
Yeah. Oh, is it completely over already? Oh, my bad.
Yeah, that
I'm sorry.
was 2-0, seemingly rather quick fashion too, Sono.
Yeah.
We should be able to get Lights Out Ace versus Alpha, maybe? Which seems to be the one remaining match.
It'll get the job done.
Here we are. Lights Out Ace, the one player that brought Kenneth in tonight, well, his
Ooh.
opponent, Alpha, is on Icaria Black.
And we do see a Furnace Mage in the hand of Alphil already, most likely being prepared to take down that combustion cell the moment it comes down, which is a nice call and a cool tech choice I'd like to see here.
So this is apparently game 3, meaning both players have managed to take a win off the other, and that means that the winner of this is going to advance to 1-0.
So I remember Lights Out Ace mentioning that combustion cell basically makes or breaks a stack. So if we see that Furnace Mage connecting with the combustion cell, that could be a heavy blow for Lights Out Ace in case that came from the market. And judging from the Ixton merchant on the field right now, I'm pretty sure it was. It could also have been drawn, but I don't think they would want that right now.
It was definitely drawn, meaning that the second Ixton merchant, which we see in Lights Out Ace's hand, can go grab that combustion cell if Loa decides to play out this cell before playing out the other merchant, and Alphil fires off the Furnace Mage now.
Good catch, Cygnus.
Alphil does go for the Furnace Mage play, which means that Lights Out Ace is probably going to be grabbing that second combustion cell out of the market now. And you see that End of Hostilities on the top. Actually, you don't. There's an End of Hostilities on top of Lights Out Ace's deck, which means that he has everything he needs to be able to engage the hyper value combo of Kenna into hostilities and a way to enable tribute.
And also, knowing and seeing Ikaria on Alfield's hand right now, I can already feel bad for them. Knowing what's coming up next, or soonish at least. Ikaria most likely being stolen by End of Hostilities, or if Lights Out Ace decides to just copying the Kenna over and over again if they want to.
I suspect that we will see Lights Out Ace just copying Kenna's,
Yeah.
and he can use the killer on one of them, especially if they've then been buffed up by End of Hostilities to just eat that Akari even though she has 7 power.
Ooh. I want to
Oh.
mention this play right now. This is extremely nice by Alfil and probably shows that they have some experience in the matchup. Going for that tick on the baby Ikaria, giving your main Ikaria 1 more health, gets them out of range from the Kenna right now, because Kenna is a 5/6, and the killer can't kill Ikaria. That was a really good play, and the sequence I really like right now.
You're correct. It now has to be a buffed Kenna
Yep.
to be able to kill off the big Ikaria, and has to be a buffed Kenna to survive an attack into the baby Ikaria. And if you see Elfil's hand, there's also a Valkyrie Enforcer, which is probably going to show up this turn to prevent this Kenna from being copied. That's what I'd be doing, even if I couldn't see Lights Out Ace's hand.
Yep. Sounds like a really good idea.
It does, of course, delay Alpha from playing his big Ikaria, and I do usually say play out Ikaria when you can, but this is definitely a situation where it's not yet Ikaria time.
Yeah. As mentioned, this sequence was just showcasing that Alphil has some experience in this matchup, knowing exactly that sometimes holding back and not giving your enemy their win condition at this point is just as good as just playing your other things right now. I really,
However,
really like this.
Lights Out Ace has exactly what he needs in that second Kenna.
You are right, but Alpha wouldn't know right now. They probably if you always assume the worst, they probably know what's going on right now. But still, just to showcase that Alpha clearly has experience and has some skill piloting the stack.
Elfil is absolutely playing to the win cons. Well,
Yep.
Lights Out Ace has things like this second Kenna that means that Elfil's currently looking very behind in this matchup. Alpha is still making the correct plays here.
Yep. Absolutely. But we do see a second Icaria pickup. It won't change much. I'm afraid. I'm afraid, but still, there is some fighting power left here.
The Icarias do, of course, get one turn to hit in
Mm.
because Lights Out Ace doesn't have any way to block them, as I suspect he will be going for a end of hostilities on Kenna rather than on any of Alphil's units. And he sees one on top, which means he's going to get that extra warp value. It's essentially drawing an extra card. Even though he doesn't need the power here to do it, he is choosing to copy
That's
something.
gonna hurt.
Now, I'm not sure what his reason for grabbing the end of hostilities, playing the end of hostilities out of hand rather than the one he drew, is because he essentially just wasted one card that you would have otherwise been drawing. Either way, I suppose it doesn't matter, as he has enough damage right there to win the game, and with it, the match.
So yeah, we all just saw the power of the Canna deck, especially the Canadian deck with the combustion cell, allowing you to easily trigger the tribute effects, both of End of Hostilities and Canna herself. Not even talking about the fact that Kenna also grows by playing spells. Well played by both players. I really like the sequence of Alpha, though. I really feel like that deserves kind of a shout out here, and definitely a thing to pick up from their playstyle. Absolutely. Nice play.
Yes, in spite of the loss, Alpha showed a lot of play skill there with playing to the most likely chance of winning.
Yep.
So I think we're going to take a short break before the next round, get all the pairings up, and find some people to watch. Be back real soon.
Heyo.
And we are back with Sono versus Croge. These are two of the fairly archetypical decks of this format so far, Rakano Valkyries and Cambria Lessie. Both decks that have sort of risen from the ashes of previously nerfed cards and archetypes. How do you
And we
feel
do
about
see some quite interesting choices being made, at least in the deck by Croach, running Roland's Intervention as well as Shugo Standard to maybe get some more spells in, as I'm just being told, which could work nicely.
Yeah, Croge has been feeling that the Rakano version of the Akari Valkyrie decks did not have enough spells,
Yeah.
and that is also vulnerable to flooding out, which is something that is kind of surprising that it can happen with a deck where you're looking to go to 7 power, but it still can happen. And Shugo Standard is a good way to combat flood.
Hmm, I agree. Interesting choice to be made. I've seen quite some Crown Watch tactics as well. But Sugar Standard, I was trying in the market myself just to see how it works. So I guess we just give them a spotlight and see how they can pilot their deck.
Yep, and that is time for it now.
We do see some awkward hand on Croach's side here,
On
and they
Sono's too,
decided.
being an only
Yeah,
1 power hand, so that's going to be a rather quick mulligan for Sono as well. Now it's into a 4 power hand with a early Wandering Wisp. Wandering Wisp is nowhere near as good early as it is late because you of course need to have 5 time influence for its ability to be active. And until then it's just a 1/1 for 1.
yeah. Also nice to see Desert Marshal back in action. Haven't seen that guy for quite some while, but in big Compre decks. But I guess that could be nice, a nice tech for the mirror match, maybe, where you get some early silence on an Alessi, maybe, if they decided to not keep a mana floating to keep her safe for a turn. Could hit
Even
some blind spots.
even in this matchup you can silence a small baby
Yep,
Icaria. You can use it to break big Icaria's Aegis to then follow up with a Vanquish. There's various options here.
absolutely. We also see the Aurelian Merchant being available for Sono, which looks like a decent play right here, and they decide to indeed go for that option. And also
Croge
see the
has
second
already
one. Oh,
Croge has already gone to the market. The first one to go to the market isn't always the first winner, isn't always the winner of a matchup, but I imagine it does give them a few percentage points.
yeah. Also fetching the Rakano banner here. Yeah, that was a really, really smart thing to do. They get the privilege of rank as well, getting to at least 6 mana and being able to cast Rizan. And also some more fodder for the lifesteal component on the Rizan.
And while this is happening, Sono is not getting access to his big threats. His threats that can become very big over the course of a couple of turns. No Alessis, no Awakened students, and no teachers. But with the Crown Watch press gang, that is going to go get the first Alessi. Now, one of my questions is if someone decides to play Crown Watch Standard X depleted power, or if he's going to sandbag that for when it becomes a spell, and it looks like it's going to be the latter.
Having two here makes it easier, obviously, to decide on which way to take. But I agree with you. And seeing the Rakano player being kind of passive and not doing much probably lets them figure out that there's something big and a big surprise waiting in their hand already. So even if they didn't get another power here, I think they still would have saved it just to make sure they have some combat trick going on the moment it matters. But we do see the stand together coming out right now.
I agree with the choice of stand together
Yeah,
over the Crown Watch tactic there. Even if your Alessi dies to the second spell, or in this case, Razan here, it the the stand together means that your Rally Merchant and Crown Watch Press King are a bit bigger and more relevant threats now too, with a killing spell onto Razan. These units get to attack him right now, but we now see that
Wow.
Coach has a turn 7 Icaria and a turn 8 Icaria, and Sono really doesn't have ways to deal with those Icarias. His best option is Xenon Initiation on his Crown Watch Press Gang, trade with the Icaria, and hope to draw into the Press Gang for the second Icaria.
Yeah. I think that was the right sequence overall. I think there could have also been a point or an argument being made for not dropping Icaria. I know you like it, Cygnus, but you could have tried to be a little bit more passive or greedy by trying to draw something out of their hand by forcing something with Rizan. That could have worked too, but I think Crouch wants to go for the finishing blow at some point soon. Also, the Shugo tactic will massively help in that endeavor.
The only reason to have played Razan last turn was if you're really fearful of Teacher, and at this point in the game you already have 2 Icarias that you can cast and a Razan to follow up with. You don't need to be wary of a draw off of Teacher. So I agree with Croach's choice to be pushing the damage right now.
Yeah, just being evasive in general really works well in this matchup right now for Crouch.
The top
How would
deck?
you see the Vanquish though?
Yeah, that's the top deck that Sono needed.
Yeah.
And he will be choosing to use the Crown Watch tactic now for the +6 life.
Yep.
And also putting Croach to 4. Croach, however, has some lifesteal of his own, as there are indeed 3 spells in his Void.
We also have the Shugo tactic on the defense in the next turn in case Sona decides to attack, which could blow them out.
Speaking of blowouts, though, that Temple tactic that Sono top decked,
Yeah.
we'll see if he chooses to hold that up before his attacks. If he does, it means he's not able to spellcraft the Sword of Unity. You
I
know,
mean, there is a world where they decide to go really slow right now and get maybe multiple effects of the spellcrafting going, but that would cost them in tempo quite heavily. But there is a world where this could potentially be the right play, just seeing your outs and ins right now.
I'm on Team Spellcraft Sword of Unity and Pass.
Yeah, pretty much.
The one thing that could blow you out on is if Croach has another Akari in hand. But if he has another Akari in hand, are you sure he wouldn't have just played it last turn?
I agree there with you. Yeah, absolutely. But we do see the attack.
Now, this attack is reasonable all in all because
Yeah.
you would have to have the soul read of Sugo standard, Sugo tactic there that would result in Croach having the good block.
That's one thick boy.
That it is. Sono does not have a way to deal with that right now, and he is going to have a lot of trouble dealing 21 damage from this point.
Also the
Especially since Rise
refill.
is going to go get another Razan. Yep, Sono sees a top decked passive progress and says, let's just head on to game 2. In that matchup, in that game, Crows just had access to 2 mini big flyers.
Yep. And I think that has kind of proven the worth of Rakana Valkyries in the format right now. Knowing that there are so many combat tricks on the ground on infantry level, just going up in the air and being evasive is just good enough at the moment. That even makes something like the Winchest Merchant actually good, even though the body doesn't feel rewarding at all. Just being evasive in general is really good in this meta, especially if the opponent doesn't use something like the Sandstorm Scarf or the Sandstorm Titan in their deck.
Funny enough, Croge's deck name today was Nothing Will Stop Us, but Kenna and Alessi. And we see that Croge was able to stop the one Kenna that Sono played this last game. Let's see if
To
there's
be
going to be
fair,
any difference this time.
though, Sono had a very slow start last turn, basically starting on 4 and not having much to write home about early on. So I think if they get a good start here with maybe with the vacant student, but
This start isn't going to be super fast for Sono either.
yeah,
I suspect that Sono's planning to take the line of Crest of Progress this turn and Awaken Student
mm,
next turn, holding up a safer turn, and of course
yep.
also beginning the Empower right away the first turn the student shows up.
So as we can see, that's kind of an anti-tempo play right now. But knowing the deck of your opponent and kind of also knowing the matchup tells Sono here to maybe go a bit slower, but then hit harder when it matters, which I really like. This was a really decent play, just dodging the torch or an early answer.
It's a frequent play that Alessi players make, and it's very reasonable when you know that you're up against an opponent who has access to torches.
Absolutely, but doesn't mean that you have to take that route. We've seen a lot of plays, especially in last tournament, where we know what's going on or knew the tempo play was XY and they still decided to not go for it. So I felt like mentioning this
Wow, Croach
despite.
decides to discard the torch and play the 5/4 Reckless Torch instead. Sono still goes for the safe return, but the thing is, he's facing down a decent number of threats right here and doesn't have any ways to deal with them. The market contains Temple Standard, Stand Together, Xenon Initiation, Desert Marshal, and Sword Immunity. I suppose these units will be large enough to pick up a Xenon Initiation and kill
Yeah.
Rizan, but even now, Alessi's gonna have to take a safe return back to hand again. And that's 7 damage, putting Sana down to 13. That's currently a 2-turn clock, but a top deck Xenon Initiation does just as well as a Market Xenon Initiation here. Better, even, as it can be played this turn, which the other would not. We see that Sana was initially considering attacking with the Awakened Student, but has since changed their mind. I suspect that a good play here would be Alessi, then Xenon Initiation onto Student to kill Razan.
You can even use it on the Alessi herself.
Ah, yes, making use of the Seek power, of course,
Yeah.
to buff Alessi up enough that she will be a 6/6 when she gains Killer.
So as we can see, even though Sona lost tempo early on, they kind of can come back at this moment just because they have immediate impact with the killer effects. And also we know that they have a second one in the market or having multiple choices to get there right now. We could even just see a sort of unity to try to stabilize next turn
Crouch
or
top
grabbing
decks,
it from the market.
Crouch top decks Razan, but at this point, he doesn't kill anything. He's not even got lifesteal. He's not good at this point, even if Croach could play him.
Yep.
Croach is trying to trade with Alessi here using the sugar tactic, but it's not going to work due to that finest hour in hand. And since it's going to only buff the unit up to a 6/5, Sono could have finest hour the awakened student, but he chose not to, just in case Sono had a second fast spell.
Hmm. And this is probably why a lot of people don't like the matchup in general. Even though Croach was extremely proactive on board, deciding to use the Bullet Shaper ultimate early on to get Rizan out, it actually kind of feels bad because it did nothing in general. And that's a little bit unhealthy, in my opinion, if you want to try and be proactive and still not get reported for that fact just because they have so many evasive tactics going on. But well played by Sono coming back, even though it looked really bad at the start. There was some nice piloting of the Combrialesi deck here.
It turns out Safe Return is a really powerful card.
Especially if your guy keeps growing.
That is correct.
So we've the final showdown now.
This is the last chance for these players to make their mark on this particular match. And Sono has a decent hand to do it, I suppose. Doesn't have any currently growing threats, so maybe he decides to send it back anyway, but looks like it is going to be this hand. 3 power, access to a Desert Marshal, and a Valkyrie Enforcer. Good options for silencing things from Croge, and a sort of unity that could eventually go on to one of these units. Awakened Student definitely stays on top for Sono, and we're once again likely going to see that turn 3 student play with a backup Safe Return.
Yet again.
Over on Croge's side of things, there seems to be some slowness here. Now, first time we get to see the harsh rules, Croge has chosen to play some number of copies of. I'm double checking the exact number. It
Also
looks like it is
interesting to
indeed
mention.
3 in the market, or 3 in the main one in the market, alongside one end of the story. So it's kind of surprising that in 2 games we didn't see any of those copies of Harsh Rule or into the story.
That's true. It also feels like Croach might be just as experienced in this matchup as you can be, because we can tell that they really, really like the Rizan or the chance of pinging something in case the window has been opened by your actions before. So that's interesting. We don't see just the typical, oh, I can get Icaria, let's get Icaria and let's push face and push face.
Well, in this particular situation, Croge is still rather far away from being able to play Icaria, and Rizan is closer, while also being able to kill a number of the threats Sono plays out if there's time to do so.
There's also an argument to be made for the fact that Croach on his turn, triggering basically the torch with the Rizan, forces Sono to use their combat tricks on the defensive side instead of an aggressive side, which does make a lot of sense and could get them far ahead if they can blow them out early on.
Shoutouts to Poetic Discord for another 100 bits, bringing their total this month up to $5 donated through bits.
Oh, nice.
Any of you guys out there that aren't running ad blockers, you can watch advertisements if you click the bits button and possibly get yourself some bits that you can use to add to the prize pool. Now, that won't show up on Matcherino for now, but we'll figure that out as revenue works out. For now, however, Sono gets to eat up Croge's Bullet Shaper and does not have any way of saving this 4-4 beyond a Desert Marshal, which doesn't really feel that great. You're losing out on silence value. But Croge is sitting on a very anemic hand at this point. He's not drawn into that 6th power he needs to play his Rizans.
If they ever get to the point where they can either drop Rizan or Icaria while having the Roland's intervention in hand, this could probably be game deciding because it basically negates your enemies stand together. Finest hour, sorry. So that's a really interesting tech choice to be made here.
This is one of those situations, however, where I'd be really weary of having those standards in my deck if I'm Croge. Top decking a Shugo tactic or a Crown Watch tactic right now would feel really bad.
Yep.
And Roland's intervention gets used now to save the 3/3 Valkyrie Enforcer.
Just in my own experience playing Rakano mid or Rakano Valkyries, I gotta say I'm not in. I can't really share this opinion that Ikaria decks float out that heavily. It always feels like you can do something at least, and right now it doesn't feel right. But considering it's only a 2-off, it's not as bad as we make it look right now, Cygnus. But still, you're right. If they top deck it right now, they're basically not in the game anymore. Even though that Seek Power just got them their 6th. But that's definitely something you have to actively think about if you want to take that into your deck or not. Because as we can see, it could also have some negative things for your deck in this case.
Also, my bad when I said that there are 5 harsh rule effects. There's actually just 3 harsh rules in the main and 1 in the market. There's no end of the story here for Croach. But there's 2 Crown Watch standards and 2 Shugo standards.
So it's 4 in total, yeah.
Yeah, that's getting appreciably close to a fifth of Croach's possible power draws. But we can see there that Croach was totally fine with being hit by the teacher, as he already has the units he's looking to play in hand, so it just helps him dig for the power to play them. And that power has arrived, and Ikaria herself has arrived.
It's definitely interesting to see Crouch not being on the receiving end in this case, even though they still could be if they decide to go for a Rise for the Challenge. But that couldn't be any better at this point here, even though that sort of unity does hurt. Just avoiding as much damage as they can right now, being on 1. That lifesteal could come in handy. Oh, that could kind of work. And that's the point you tried to make last tournament when you said that you actually like a melee because you can block Icarias and stuff like that. You're absolutely right. That's 1 big unit right now, but it still looks like this could end rather badly for Croach.
Not yet, though. Sono doesn't have a way to crack through that Amelie this turn, and Croge is going to be able to play out a Razan that, let's see, at this point does
the torch
have life, does not actually have lifesteal. Wow.
But the torch has just been drawn.
Torch, that's exactly what Croge needed here. He's able to kill Alessi, then play out Razan with lifesteal, kill the Valkyrie Enforcer.
The double block.
He's got the blockers he needs for the 2 units in play.
Usually you can say that you're not super happy if you draw torch that late in the game, but that was just perfect right there.
However, Xenon Initiation is going to go on to the Awakened Student, and even though Razan does a lot of things well, he doesn't block a large Overwhelm unit well. Croge survives that, landing at 1 power, and is then able to play out another Razan. So, still, the game is not over. And the next Razan is going to be helpful as well. This Razan, of course, has to attack due to Reckless, but an attack still results in Croge gaining 5 life, which is more than any one of these units like Teacher Female can do. But at this point, Awakened Student is 1 killer attack, 1 power, or 1 Xenon Initiation away from being large enough to eat a Millie. Now, I suspect rather than eating a Millie, yes, he goes for killing one of the Razans. But yeah, harsh roll for Croge is not going to be fast enough. He literally cannot play that, otherwise he would straight up die rather than having a couple of turn clock here, which means that there's a world where Croge top decks exactly what's needed here. Any way to break that Awakened Student's Aegis for 4 mana or less. But another sort of unity.
Those top decks, man, they were brutal. They're both in the esports entertainment industry, can you tell?
Well, the thing is, that doesn't change the number of turns that Crouch has, and he does get hit by Teacher, giving him an opportunity to make that draw right there. Now he gets to kill this 16-16. He loses his Razan, and Sono still has the 4-4 Teacher in play, which is currently a 3-turn clock. But we're both still, these players are both still in this game. Wandering Wisp as a draw for Sono can become another threat. Right now it's only a 1-1 and is only going to be getting +2/+2 next turn, but +2/+2 is still enough to make this clock into lethal on the following turn. A top deck of Crown Watch Tactic is not going to do it for Croge. Now, we keep in mind, if that weren't a Crown Watch Tactic, it would have just been power, so still wouldn't have been enough for Croge here. Congratulations for Sono. Congratulations to Sono, even, for taking this matchup 2-1 against Croge.
That was an amazing game. What a back and forth constantly. But you can still see the power of the LSD decks coming through, just punching through if they don't get to the face. They don't even care. They just go for it and go for their game plan. Even though Croach had amazing comebacks in this game, it didn't quite matter in the end, which is kind of upset a little bit, but still well played to both players. Amazing game.
And that seems to have been the end of this round. We'll be back very shortly for round 3.
Hello again, and we're back with the next round, and it looks like we have the pairing of Solar Flare against Houdini as our featured match this time around. Solar Flare seems to be piloting a Horo Flyer stack. He has some very interesting name. And Houdini is on the Free Faction Minotaurs list again. I think I remember that from last tournament, but I'm not quite sure if that's the same list.
I don't know if it is the same list. It's running a number of interesting choices for Huru Flyers list.
Yeah. Do we have the deck name here just right now? Because I was reading earlier and that was like super funny.
It's a number of puns. Flying Like an Eager Owlet by the Steve Amilli Band.
Ooh. You can see what you did there, Solar Flare. Trying to comment on the very successful Steve Miller Band that is being used in our break, basically, as the music. And I think he wants to tell us that he really appreciates that song.
I mean, yeah, was it Solar Flare that was no, that was Poetic Discord that was song requesting it the
Right.
the other day. People seem to be having their fun with it, and yeah, both of these are some interesting decks here. Three faction Minotaur Alessi versus two faction Hooter Flyers. And the players are ready, so it looks like we're about to dive on in.
You can see Permafrost and Finest Hour as kind of combat tricks for Solar Flare to actively be on the board and fight for it. But we also see stuff like Eager Owlet, which also was featured in the deck's name, which becomes a free flyer for 2 mana and 1 green influence if you have another unit with flying, so appropriately named. And we see a lot of other things like Kothon, the Far Watcher, Wild Cloud Snake that gets more damage and health if you play other units with flying. So that's quite interesting. And as we just mentioned earlier in the last matchup, we know for a fact that being evasive in the air against some sort of a Lassie deck could work rather well here for Solar Flare. Let's see if they get a decent draw. And we do see the Ice Sprites in the deck in hand as well right now.
Yes, Solar Flare is making use of a lot of small flyers
Yeah.
that many of these Hooter decks have not been trying to play for quite some time now.
Which is interesting because we all know that Permafrost is a really decent card. But if you can keep your unit safe, a body that basically also gives you permafrost is just worth as much. And we do see that the Vanquish actually connects and gets rid of the 4/4 here. But we do see
That's one
quite
of the
some refill.
That's one of the downsides of playing an Auric Record Keeper out as your first unit. If
Yep.
it dies, its Entomb effect isn't going to be hitting anything. It's still a 4/4 for 3, which is a pretty good stat line in Eternal. And this turn, the 4/4 for 3 arrives with her friend, Alessi.
Also, just having that sort of unity already in the back for Houdini feels probably really good. But we do see that Solarflare decides to get rid of the Auric Record Keeper for now, buffing that Alessi and giving them the chance to draw another Alessi or maybe even a Wisp. But they don't run a Wisp. I should check the lists more often.
The draw for Houdini is the Crest of Mystery, which is getting Houdini closer and closer to being able to spellcraft Sword of Unity, but it's not a fast spell, as this deck runs a lot fewer than many Alessi decks, though 24 is still a very decent number.
Yeah, I agree. So knowing the deck lists right now, since this is an open deck list format, there could be something to be said for Houdini to first get all of your units out there and then getting through with this sort of unity. So I'm pretty sure we will see both coming down right now, especially knowing that your opponent doesn't have much hard removal. even though Solar Flare could do quite some harm if they top deck a power right now, maybe even do get a power, slowing down 2 units and preventing quite a bit of damage, and also having the Huru pacifier, not allowing weapons to be played, which is amazing in this point. There was some really good sequencing and draw by Solar Flare.
Ask and you shall receive, apparently.
Yeah. Well, Horo Pacifier is just a really great unit at the moment in this meta. So many weapons and spellcraft weapons being run, and you just prevent it with a 3/4 that doesn't even die to Hailstorm, which is amazing. So you can even run Hailstorm on your own while keeping the effect active. So that's something nice to consider as well, in case you guys are interested in trying out decks like these.
And
Definitely a solid list.
And many Hoover Flyer decks run that pacifier whether it's a weapons meta or not, because
Yeah.
a 3/4 flying overwhelm unit for 3 is once again a very respectable stat line. As you can see, it, with the help of a Millie, has put Houdini down to 10 life already.
And we can completely see how the game plan goes together for Solar Flare here. And as we mentioned earlier, that evasiveness in the air is basically winning the game right now for them. Even that 4 damage shouldn't bother Solar Flare too much. Added another 3 on top, doesn't matter either. Just go for it, let them through, and pack a punch next turn. That looks great for them.
Yeah, this crackback is lethal, and due to that, Houdini takes a concession. Solar Flare was able to get out onto the board nice and quick, and it was exactly what was needed there to close out a quick game versus Houdini. With a 1 game advantage, Solar Flare now only needs to win 1 remaining game to beat Houdini here.
There's something to be said about Alessi and further archetypes being tried out with her. It looks like the more you try to add on top of the deck or to splash into other colors, obviously the more inconsistent you make the deck. It looks like the standard Compre list with added spell effects just works the best, as we could see. There was no early aggression whatsoever by Houdini, and Solarflare was able to completely wreck this game because there was not much to be faced from Houdini's side.
I suspect this deck from Houdini is more so trying to be an Argenport mid-range style list that just also happens to be running Arc Record Keepers and Alessis, because
They're
Crown
good. Yeah.
Octopus gang combos into Alessi, and then also having a bunch of spells, including a number of ones that save your units, such as Stand Together and Safe Return, and a number of ones that help you smooth over your draw.
That is absolutely right. But I still think there is a reason why most LSE decks are being carry. And as we can see, consistency is not good. Maybe they're going to be figured out to make this more consistent and Tavrod into the action as well. But for now, we can see a double LSE start for Houdini, as well as a Crown Watch Press Gang and an Auric Rune. Wait, what's his name? Record Keeper. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, the deck concept is interesting as well with the recursion from Dark Return. But the question is, does this deck really actually need it, like the Alessi shell?
It is, of course, running Tavrods, because with this many Minotaurs and weapons, why would you
Yeah.
not? Annihilate, that's a card definitely am unsurprised to see Houdini leave on top.
Maybe shutting down that early aggression seems like a really decent plan for them, even though they lose tempo right now going for that. Also, the Alessi getting silenced will punish that keep, basically.
I mean, Houdini didn't have any way to defend that Alessi
Yeah.
anyway, and this turn could be an Alessi into Annihilate turn, though neither of these units are really big enough to necessarily annihilate. I do agree that Houdini wants to keep that card, as many of Solar Flare's threats are monofaction.
Yep.
Well, Wild Cloud Snake can, of course, get very large.
Solar
And
Flare was basically like, oh, you use this Elastic card that grows. I'm gonna show you something that grows in the air that is evasive, and I'm gonna show you how it's being used.
Unseen Commando is a great play this turn. It doesn't actually buff up either of these units anything more than their normal buffs and can die here, but 2/3 flyer for 3 that attacks as a 3/4 flyer while also having lifesteal is once again a good rate.
Yep, absolutely. Unseen Commando's doing quite some work especially in the iconic duo with the Whirling duo, and buffs them up to 4/4 as well in Recano decks, for example.
Yeah, I would say that Unseen Commando was the best card of last metagame.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not counting any of the micro metas that we had since the fall of Argenport, where decks became incredibly powerful and then had key cards nerfed.
I can agree with that. And we also see that Houdini could potentially get back that Auric record keeper, with the Dark Return being in hand right now, which would be a rather slow play, but getting some decent value on the board and some good stats that are heavily needed right now. I think Houdini would have to start going aggressive right now before they actually start to lose track of this game. But we do see Solar Flare already preparing for shenanigans in the future, or even for the Celestia that could grow too big.
Yeah, the thing is, there's more power in play for Solar Flare right now than for Houdini, and Solar Flare is at a higher health total than Houdini, and the power in play for Solar Flare is, of course, all flying threats. So Houdini is very on the back foot at this time.
I think going for the press gang here is the right way to tackle this whole matchup. You can potentially get more buffs on the next Alessi that has been drawn, but they actually decide to get the record keeper back right now. Even though putting out the Alessi and going for the same play next turn would have not changed much, right? But getting the new Alessi another +1/+1 because of the spell. So that's something to keep in mind. I don't think it will matter this game, but the sequencing could have mattered in another game, maybe.
That is the danger of playing a list like this if you're Houdini. It really does not have access to flyers and really just folds to decks that throw out a bunch of flyers like that one that Solar Flare was on.
I think Solar Flare piloted this deck really nicely, also already being aware of the fact that they will need the Vanquish soon. Getting that already ready in the hand and out of the market was a really nice play, and also just the aggression throughout the game while being evasive showed yet again that this is a really good strategy against any infantry deck, basically. And knowing that your enemy is not running Sandstorm Titan make this even easier for them.
That is correct. Now, there are still several outstanding matches, so we'll be able to bring more Eternal to you this round.
Right, that was rather quick now that you mentioned it, yeah. Solar Flare made quick work of the 3-faction Minotaur deck here.
Not the only 3-faction Minotaur deck brought here to this tournament, though the other one didn't wind up faring too well. Before we do get into our next game, I once again want to shout out our sponsors, Inked Gaming, and you guys through Matcherino. You can go to Matcherino and add money to the prize pool for free or by spending some of your own money for various different ways. Now, after that is said, let's dive into Safar versus Catduit. Currently on Game 3, it looks like it's pretty much just started.
And we do see the Chalice by Sifar yet again, a matchup I started to dread playing against him last Thursday, which felt really bad on the receiving end because Sifar is really playing Chalice to their best. And we see the AP mid-range on the other hand with the Marionette Cross yet again. And we see quite some pressure being put on the board early on. We see a Bloodletter as well as the Slay in hand already. But Sifar says basically, I think this is enough for now. Let's try that again and rebuild.
And this right here is why I feel this is a rather poor matchup for Argenport mid-range.
Yeah.
Safar has access to board wipes and kill spells to get rid of the attackers that Catuit has, and also blockers that can deal with the non-flying attackers that Catuit has, though Catuit is on a version of the deck that is running a decent number of flyers, like running those Impending Dooms over, for example, Crownwatch Trader, which is a card that I personally really like.
Yeah. And I can see that there's some way, if Catuit really hits the window perfectly and putting on the early pressure, that they can get through this. But seeing the hand of Sifar already lets me know that I don't think this is the right matchup here, or this game at least. We have a 1-5 that gives health back on the board right now with Deadly, so the attacking way on the ground is being blocked for now, but the Slay will get rid of this. We see the Crownwatch Paladin that keeps attacking for now. But on the other hand, Sifa has Chalice in hand and a Camel and the Combra Healer, which will be a lot to get through for Catuit on the other hand.
Yeah, Catuit does not really feel that amazing killing any of Safar's units, and Safar doesn't mind having units killed. A top deck Inquisitor's Blade is definitely a good draw for Catuit, allowing this unit to attack in as a 6-3 while also getting his Warcraft, and that weapon can come back later on if the unit dies and there's another unit in play when it's once again top deck. It's essentially a sword with revenge. Here's Harshal. And
This
now,
ends now.
and now only one of the cards in Catuit's hand actually does anything, and that's the Orc Runehammer. Playing out an Orc Runehammer into a guard tower doesn't feel very good. It's only one attack for 4, and if Safar chooses to spend 5 power, it's gone. And become power. And I'm realizing that really what you should be evaluating it as is just Recon Tower.
Yep.
If it just says once per turn you may pay 3 to draw a sigil of your choice from your deck. After the third use, sacrifice Recon Tower. It seems kind of slow and clunky even then, but Safar doesn't mind slow and clunky. It's a Chalice deck. They thrive on slow and clunky.
I mean, yeah, as you mentioned, this is basically a nice card for just Chalice right now, or any deck that needs to make sure that keeps on drawing and keep the draw engine going. And just later on to pop Aegises on various things like Icarias or whatever is in your way. It's most likely never gonna be deciding to finish games, even though we see the 1 damage to the face right now. But yeah, just having something to get through Aegises in this meta is really strong. Seeing all the Alessi matchups we just had already, just knowing that you have something that can deal with it is really nice. But Channel the Tempest really puts on the damage right now on Catuit. It looks rather dire right now for them.
This is a grim point for sure. Though there are still outs. I'm not really sure what they'd be though. that's the thing. If Safar has time to enact the Chalice game plan, it becomes really hard for our Newport midrange to win. This is the matchup that Safar really wants.
Yeah.
An opponent with a bunch of cards that need other cards to be played. Like Safar didn't care about those removal spells, and Safar didn't care about anything else going on there.
It kind of feels like an awkward spot for AP midrange right now, or for every Argent Port deck that is tried to be run. I can see some fringe success for them, but it feels like they lack something other decks have gained in Fall of Argent Port. And maybe the name of the expansion is actually synonymous with how the archetype feels right now, because it definitely feels like Argentport has fell down quite a bit since the last reign of Tafrod and friends and big weapons being played. It just doesn't feel like it did anymore, because other decks have gotten so many tools to play around with, making their decks more consistent through markets. And AP mid is standing there looking back and feel like it's being left in the dust for no reason.
Darwolf definitely likes to shift the event to a. They like to shift the meta to different players whenever they, or different decks whenever they get the opportunity to.
Yeah, which I appreciate, but it still feels bad because there are people out there who really dig Argentport and the playstyle and everything, the whole thematic of Argentport. And it just doesn't feel too competitive right now. We even see people basically splash Combri in a free faction deck just to get all the big cards in there and then get your usual suspects in as well. But that was also a rather quick match we just saw there. It's already over yet again.
Yeah, before we were even able to get the hand cannon there.
Yeah, it just felt like worth mentioning because I have wrote with a lot of people trying to revive Argentport in some way or another, and it just doesn't feel right at the moment. So I thought it's worth mentioning here.
With that, the round is done, so we're going to take a break to prepare for the last round of the night. See you soon.
Yay!
And we are back with the final round of this tournament tonight. Both of these players here, Safar, who is on TJP Chalice, and Sona, who is on Cumbre Leslie, are currently 3-0, meaning they're fighting for the opportunity to get the most invitational points out of this event possible. And let's dive in pretty quickly to see who's going to do that, as these players are ready for their match.
It's gonna be interesting. Even though Chalice is kind of resident sleeper for the audience, I think a lot of people can pick up quite a bit of hints on how to tackle the Combri matchup that is actually rather common on the ladder. So if you feel like you want to learn something, watch closely here. Sifar is a very experienced Chalice player, and he grinded me out. He grinded many people out of the tournament already, as we can tell by their statistics right now. And I guess we just have a go and see how it works out for them.
Yeah, Safar seems to be the one player right now that's really big on Chalice and has been showing that it still works in the fall of Argenport, even
Yep.
though it has fallen out of favor with most other players.
Chalice just feels extremely consistent, even though you have a lot of dead draws and power and stuff like that. It just feels like you always have some kind of answer to the board state, especially the fact that they basically run 8 harsh rules make it hard to miss a really good answer at any point.
Yeah, that is the case.
8 harsh rules, man. Good times to be alive.
It depends. I'm more so trend towards the kind of guy who has a lot of weird things in play I don't want to see die to harsh rules, but I understand them as a necessary evil for dealing with things like these Cumbre decks, and getting as many as possible increases your chances of burning through those Aegises or using End of the Story to go directly through the Aegis. Oh, a shush. That is an early pickup for Safar. Could help deal with a very annoying unit like Alessi or something, but right now those cards aren't in hand for Sono anyway. All it is this one Desert Marshal and a lot of ways to buff up multiple units, which aren't around yet. Due to that, Safar is going to have plenty of time to set up for the Chalice game plan.
Yeah. It's like an awkward spot right now for Sono, because knowing that you give the Chalice stack just time to ramp up and get going feels really bad. There could be some point made here just getting the Swords of Unity out there, but it just feels so bad getting no value whatsoever. But there is probably a world where it would be the right call, maybe. I'm not quite sure about that myself yet. But we do see the market coming in. What do you think they're gonna go for here?
I'm not even entirely sure what's in Sono's market, but if there's a unit-based threat, I am hedging that's the pickup here. The units frequently aren't that popular in markets.
Yeah. Let's quickly have a look. Desert Marshal, Scene Initiation, Stand Together, Sword of Unity, and Temple Standard.
None of those cards are actually incredibly exciting here. Sono goes
Yeah.
for the Temple Standard, which is the Temple Tactic, as it's already been transformed. That's fair. It's a way to save one of his units, which may very well be important in the face of a possible harsh rule.
I'm pretty sure Sono wants to get going, basically pulling that Temple Standard out of his market or their market. I think it just feels bad for them to be on this receiving end already. They probably want to use the Sword of Unity, bounce back their units, including the weapon, which the Temple Standard gives you access to, and maybe try to get ahead while you can, since you have double Stand Together in hand with the weapon and Safe Return as well.
The top deck Groundwatch press game for Sono was really good there, allowing
Yeah.
them to get an Alessi and have the power up to save it with Safe Return there. Now, we see that Safar chooses not to shush the press game, meaning that it's likely to be specifically laser targeted in on that Alessi, but I don't expect to see it resolve due to the various different ways Sono has to defend his girl.
Absolutely. I like Sono understanding at this point already that they have to start going in at some point. Even though they might lose units right now, they still have some kind of combat trick with the stand together, giving better trades than they actually looked and keeping their units safe, getting some chip damage in. But I think we will definitely see the sort of unity coming down, getting the spellcraft off, and then being bounced back into the hand of Sono.
Close your eyes.
Because I can see that being the way to win right now. Also, we see popping the Aegis with the Compre Healer, which is a nice play. I don't even know if all players know that you could do that at this point.
Even with Comrade Healer targeting Alessi to break the Aegis and Desert Marshal as a follow up to kill or silence the Alessi, Sono has a rather beefy board here, and with access to that sort of unity and spellcraft, this becomes a relevant overall threatening attack. And
Yeah.
I would be unsurprised if he chooses to do that now or in the near future, because he does have to be wary of a potential end of the story from Safar. There's not any in hand right now, which means that's not something to be afraid of. But Sono doesn't know that and really can't afford to play like that is the case.
I wonder though why you wouldn't pull the trigger here with the sort of unity. This is basically your all in. If they wipe this board off, you're out of the game. There's no way for you to basically come back. I mean, you can pick up an Alessi if you get a lucky Crown Watch press going on, but I think at this point, just going ham would have been the right play. I'm not sure if giving Sifar more time to dig deeper is the right thing to do here.
I would say I agree. In this particular situation, Sono is not going to be punished for it, being able to just use the temple tactic to save his 5-5 and bring it up to a 6-6. Still silence, but only cost 1, meaning that Sono can go ahead and play out and spellcraft the Sword of Unity now.
Seeing the Vanquish here at this point probably shows Sono that they don't have a double harsh rule in hand, which is probably what they were afraid of. But even then, you would have gotten quite some damage in, and Sifar is already at 15. So I'm not quite sure what this delay of one turn did, but give you additional information you kind of didn't need at this point.
Right.
I mean, it basically gave Sifar a free turn to find additional answers. That exact same thing could have happened last turn, basically, with the exact result.
I agree with you there, and that it really was misplay for Sono. But the thing is, Sono may have also been playing the percentage points at this, deciding that there were earlier turns where Safar probably would have fired off that harsh rule and didn't, which means that it would have had to have been a recent draw. And I mean, there's a decent chance of it
Wait, Seed
happening,
Initiation
but
could do quite some damage here, right? With the Overwhelm on Alessi.
yeah, Sin Initiation for Overwhelm on Alessi to kill Amber Acolyte, and then an attack with the other 2 units. Let's see.
Or just get a second sort of unity, right? I'm a dumbass.
Yeah,
I'm
that
sorry.
works too. Can put that on Chrono Watch Press King and attack in for lethal. Either way, really would have been lethal. Shush is a fast spell, so Safar is able to kill one of the units, meaning it isn't lethal. That's my bad. I really thought Shush was a slow spell.
Yeah, same. I have never seen Shush against you, but by Sifar once. It's an interesting tech choice, to say the least. No doubt.
It's not going to be enough to
Yeah.
say the most. Meaning Sono is about to go up 1 game over Safar, proving that, yes, these unit-based aggressive decks can beat Chalice.
To be fair, Sifar didn't draw any of their outs early on or any of their harsh rules, even though they had like access to 8s, which
Yeah.
is some of the drawback from the time version, I guess, by not having that on demand if you actually really need it. Even though I'm not sure if it would have won the game there. Sono had quite some early interaction with the stand together in hand and the tempo standards and all that good stuff. I'm not sure if it would have changed anything.
It may not have, but we're
You never
in the
know
game
now.
too, either
Yeah.
way.
But I gotta say, I like the way Sono tackles this matchup by trying to just build an oppressive board and then going all out. Even though I still want to mention that once again, that one turn where they did nothing was a wasted turn. They need to pull the trigger if they realize that they're ahead. This is the only way to win against Sifar and Chalice right now.
I want to take a moment to talk about the sigil that Safar is using. It's the newish Shadow Sigil, and frankly, I didn't realize that it's a spider. I thought it was some humanoid figure rising up from the depths,
Okay.
where what is actually the spider's abdomen is, I thought, was the figure's head, and the spider's middle legs were arms. I'm not really sure
Oh,
what exactly was going on at the front, but it definitely seemed like a humanoid figure to me.
that's interesting.
Valkyrie Enforcer for Sono is going to prevent the Aurelian Merchant from adding an extra power to Safar's options, but really, an extra power there wouldn't have been too huge anyway. Safar goes straight for Sandstorm Scarf here to deal with that Valkyrie Enforcer, even though it's pretty much the only flyer in Sono's deck. The other options would have been Crystalline Chalice, Luminous Claimer, or Passage of Eons. I suppose you don't need the second Chalice very bad. You already have one in hand that you get to play out now. Luminous Claimer is obviously from a much later game, and probably not something ever relevant in this matchup. There's something to be said for picking up Passage of Eons as a way to not exactly board wipe Sono, but break through a stand together or mess with some units. So there's definitely something to be said for picking up Passage instead. But I suspect that Safar really wanted to get the Merchant in play to have it there to provide extra power.
Yeah, I agree with you. Hmm.
That's
This is
the
an
end of the
interesting
story.
hand for Sifar.
Yeah, the thing is, that end of the story doesn't go through Aegis without Tribute, and Safar has no way to activate Tribute here. Even a bad block by Sono won't do it, so instead it's going to be another unit showing up, this time Cumbry Healer, who decides to break Wandering Wisps.
That was a fine play. Yeah.
To follow up with Shush to permanently silence it and all other Wandering Wisps in Sono's deck.
Definitely an interesting card we haven't seen much of yet, but as mentioned by Sifar, I think that could potentially give you some really nice outs against this deck in particular. There are many prime targets you would like to hit, like the Wisp or Alessi, and that makes it worth to pick up early on.
Even Teacher of Humility is something definitely to consider hitting with Shush in this matchup because Safar does a lot of extra card drawing off of Chalice and cards like Wisdom of the Elders. So here we see Harsh Roll that's going to
Nice.
result in Sono still having 2 units on board right now and another unit going to hand if Sono decides it's time to fire off that safe return, which according to Sono it's not. How do you feel about that choice by Sono?
I mean, I can see why you wouldn't do it right now because you still have some amount of pressure on. But seeing that harsh rule in this turn basically tells you that they're okay with abandoning the board because they have a second wipe going on. But I think Sifar basically wanted to make sure to see if there was some interaction or fast spell communication from Sonos side, and there was. So they can probably deduce how the hand looks right now in some way or another. So I think there was more for getting information than actually trying to get it off, if that makes sense. I'm pretty sure they knew since Stand Together wasn't available at this point because 2 mana were left for Sono, that they would hit something. And now they also got the information that Safe Return or potentially some other fast spell is in the hand of Sono, which is not very surprising, but as we saw, it worked out. And we now see the passage of eons being picked up, as you mentioned earlier, just getting rid of the card text effects right now and just trying to stabilize at this point. I think Sifar has to pull a trigger right now yet again in order to stay in this game.
And not just pull the trigger on the
Passage of Eons, yeah,
It
but end of the
has to
story.
be this end of the story. Now,
Yeah.
he is getting some extra draw value by warping one off the top, but Sono gets to return a card to hand here with Safe Return. I'm personally all for returning Valkyrie Enforcer because the other unit would have had a chance to come back, but this is the more conservative line by Sono. It, of course, does still have Aegis from the fact that it picked that up previously, and is a 5/5, and that's very
I think
relevant.
that's
point,
mainly just because to populate the board again, I have to guess here, just to get on it again and try to figure something out.
exactly. Sono wanted to
Yeah.
repopulate the board as fast as possible, and getting to replay Alessi on this turn as well seems pretty strong. Now, there's a world where he would have been able to do that alongside playing out Valkyrie Enforcer, but
Yep.
that would, of course, be relying on randomness and would be a 1 in 10 chance, as Revenge puts the dead unit somewhere in the top 10 cards of your deck.
Absolutely.
This method also keeps Revenge live, which is possibly
Another
relevant
thing
as
to
well.
yeah, very good mention here actually. I mean, you have to go for the chalice. There's no world where you don't go for the activation right now. You need that card draw. You need to find more answers to this already bothering board yet again. But we do see the Desert Marshal coming down to silence the Alessi. Just correct me, please, if I'm wrong right now, because sometimes it's a little bit pixely, so I can't really see. He had 6 mana left, so he could have silenced the Crown Watch Press Gang and go for another sweep, right?
Yes, that is something that Savar had the opportunity to do there that turn.
What do you think about that? Was that a decent play, potentially?
It's definitely something I would have been considering, and
Yeah.
silencing the Alessi in particular feels very bad because you, of course, could have broken the Press King's Aegis. I suppose that Safar was weary of another fast spell like Safe Return from Sono, but there wasn't one. And that means that Sono has another opportunity to attack with some units and to draw the Safe Return. Ooh, Sono gets to fire off Crown Watch tactic here.
This is what I really like about Eternal, because you're so easily punished once you decide to do the wrong step. And you can also punish back in just the same way. And I think Sono just got that one thing he really needed to stay in this match right now, because that passage of eons together with the end of the story could have basically been game over here. But yet again, Sifar decided to give them another chance at trying. I think this last turn would have been a fine turn to go for passage of eons actually, and just getting rid of most of the stuff and popping the Aegis and just making sure that you can potentially go for it. And if they had something in hand already, they would have triggered it there, and you could still get rid of 2 other units, card texts, and effects.
What? Okay. Okay. So plays out the Safe Return right now even though the press gang still had its aegis and everything, just to go get another Lessie.
Getting
That,
impatient at this point.
yeah, is definitely impatience from Sono, and I am worried it's going to get punished.
It's funny.
Especially if Safar had attacked with the Desert Marshal.
Yeah. We
But
do see the fast spell window right now, right yet again. But as it resolves, we can tell that there's nothing of value right now to be gained here.
I would say
There's the next unit.
that was definitely a mistake from Safar not attacking in with the Desert Marshal,
Yeah.
because that could have given Sono an opportunity to make the misplay of
I agree there,
blocking
yeah.
with the press gang, and then into the story still would have been enough to save Safar last turn. And instead, this
And
is
also
the route
potentially give you the tribute effect. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I didn't even realize that. Sorry.
this,
And now
however,
it's...
wow, Sono has lethal here.
Oh my... What the...
He was able to put the Desert Marshal into play on the end of Safar's turn, and since Safar's only interaction there is slow-paced stuff, the Crowd Rush tactic that Sono kept in hand for that eventuality allowed him to burst for 5 damage and win the match 2-0 versus Chalice. Apparently,
Wow.
we just got confirmation that this was the last match of the tournament.
I
So,
wonder.
congratulations to Sono for winning the Tuesday tournament, even though we never remembered to change the tournament title on Twitch to the Tuesday event. But thank you to everybody for watching. Thank you to everybody for playing. And I want to shout out some of our good friends and sponsors. So there's Kaleri, who was our tournament organizer today and is the one who set up the site, eternaltournaments.com, that we use for all of these tournaments. Dr. Hero, who was an absolute hero, has helped us with graphics and has stepped in on short notice when we've needed a tournament organizer or an extra caster or various different things like that. We have The Rock, who has provided graphics for us, but I would say what his big thing is that he's today's producer and a frequent producer for us, and also oftentimes casts while also producing. We have Kevin Tibro, who's done some of what I would say are prettiest graphics, such as the owls. The owls are pretty.
I like them too, yeah.
The Overmaster for his various different roles, and Aaron Delphin for his roles as well. Now, our supporters that have spent money are Katsuko Moo, Reshef, Duncan Wren, Yuri Kyoto, Croge, Flying Finn, Sillyhead Pantsman, great name by the way, and Gaga Hacks. So thank you to all of you guys, and you know what? We should maybe toss Poetic Discord onto there as well for all the generous bits that Poetic Discord has been providing us. So thank you to everybody, and we hope to see you around on Thursday for our next tournament. That will be our European focused tournament based on our time slot that will be much earlier in the day than this American focused tournament. But as always, if you're around, no matter what the time is, join on in. Come by and cast or watch.
There's nothing that I could say right now that you haven't said. So thank you very much for having me yet again. It's always fun to cast with you, Cygnus, and also thanks for the Rock and Kaleri for giving us the production and the tournament organizing tonight. I'm just glad that we have so many fun games every single time. It's so fun to actually comment on this and see the different outs and decks that are being played.